Welcome to Football with Cheese. Hope everybody had an amazing weekend. It's Tuesday. I usually do a video on Monday, but I'm glad I waited because I wouldn't have been able to talk about Trey Hendrickson and Terry Mclaurin getting new contracts, so we're going to get into that. But first, make sure you are subscribed and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss a video. So it is cut down day. I'm not going to sit here and go over all the cut downs because most of the players getting cut you've never heard of. So I'm not going to make a video about that. There are going to be a few surprises and there'll be some trades, but I'm not going to break that down. What I do want to mention is Jerry Jones has been talking to Micah Parsons about a new contract directly with the player, which goes against the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement. And Darrelle Revis posted a letter basically telling the players union needs to step up and do something about it. Jerry Jones has been doing it for years, and the players union does nothing about it. Like Jerry Jones can do whatever he wants, apparently. And Darrelle Revis correctly, I believe, called out the players union for not doing something about it. So maybe this will help, but yeah, owners are not allowed to directly talk to the player. They need to go through the agent if they have an agent, and Micah Parsons does. And Jerry's been doing this for years. So I'm going to get more into it in the podcast tonight. If you don't know, I co-host a podcast. My buddy Mike, he started it. It is every Tuesday night, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 7 Mountain, and 6 Pacific. I will link it in the description. We are going to do our college football preview. Very excited. We're doing that tonight. We'll also talk some NFL. Obviously, the Jerry Jones situation. We'll talk Terry Mclaurin, Trey Hendrickson, and we'll do some baseball as well. So make sure you check that out. So Trey Hendrickson, just want to go over it real quick. If you do not know, he agreed to a revised contract with the Bengals. He got a pay raise, basically. They basically bribed him to come into camp. Well, he was in camp. They bribed him to report and actually practice. And they gave him a raise to $30 million a year. And he's still a free agent at the end of the year. And I think this is the worst possible thing the Bengals could have done. Why not extend him? Why not give him a 3 or 4 year deal? He's right in his prime. I get it. He's 29. Players typically fall off 31, 32 in the NFL. So I understand not wanting to give him like a 5 year deal. Give him a 3 or 4 year contract. But now he's going to be a free agent. And you paid him more money this year, so you don't have as much cap room. So what was the point? The whole thing is you want to lock him up for several years, right? Keep your best defensive player. And not only did they not do that, they didn't get anything out of it. He's still a free agent end of the year. They just gave him more money. So they're probably going to lose him. It's so stupid. The Bengals, I just don't know why they do business the way they do. Incredibly stupid. It's good for Trey Hendrickson. He gets a big raise, and he's going to get paid by someone next year. He's going to get paid. So I just don't understand the Bengals. This was an opportunity to lock him up for at least the next 3 or 4 years. And he is by far their best defensive player. And they didn't have leverage, even though they drafted Shamar Stewart in the first round. We're going to talk about leverage in a second with Terry McLaurin. Even though they drafted another edge rusher, they need another edge rusher. They didn't have leverage because without Trey Hendrickson, they're a bad defense with him. Without him, they're a horrible defense. He is their pass rush. He was their pass rush last year, led the league in sacks. So Bengals handled this horribly. And then they basically gave in. And now Hendrickson gets a big raise and gets to be a free agent next year. He will cash in. He will cash in big time, even though he'll be 30. Terry McLaurin agreed to a 3-year, $96 million deal, $30 million guaranteed. We're going to break it more down on the podcast tonight. But I just want to say Washington did not handle this well. They could have paid him before the free agency started and paid him less. My guess is the going rate was 27, 28, 29 million about then. Just a guess. I don't know for sure. But once T. Higgins got 29 million, McLaurin needed to get more than that. Once DK Metcalf got 31, 32, I'm not sure. I'm not going to look it up. I don't have notes for this. I'm just spitballing. But Terry McLaurin wanted to at least get close to that or match that. And the Redskins, the Redskins, not the Commanders. From what I read is they didn't even want to go $30 million for a while. And they were using Cortland Sutton's $23 million a year contract to say, hey, something closer to that. But Cortland Sutton took a smaller APV to get more guaranteed money. He got 41 guaranteed. Terry McLaurin got 30. So he wanted more guaranteed money. He didn't care about the annual value. So Washington ended up caving because they pretty much have to. They don't have leverage. They don't have another receiver even close to as good as Terry McLaurin. Over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns last year. He had some incredible games. And I don't think he's a top 10 receiver borderline, but I think he's top 15. And he's by far your best receiver. Your offense will not be the same without him. Just like the defense for the Bengals won't be the same without Hendrickson. And Washington did not draft a receiver high. I'm not sure if that was the plan. Sometimes the board just doesn't fall that way. The best player is just not a receiver, so you don't do that. You take the best player, regardless. Well, with care to positional value. We've talked about it in other videos, not going to get into it. But Washington, they picked 29th. They took Josh Connolly, offensive tackle, Oregon. I really liked that pick. It was a need. But maybe they liked Matthew Golden, who went 6 picks earlier to Green Bay, who had a great camp. But he wasn't there. So they couldn't take a receiver. In the second round, they took Trey Amos, another pick I liked, cornerback from Ole Miss at pick 61. Maybe they liked Jack Besh, who went 3 picks before, wide receiver TCU to the Raiders. Maybe they liked Trey Harris, Ole Miss wide receiver, who went 6 picks earlier to the Chargers. But those guys weren't available. So sometimes the board, it's the way it falls. I still remember 2022, Aaron Rodgers was still with Green Bay. And Green Bay had 2 first-round picks in the Devontae Adams trade. And Rodgers made it known he really wanted one of those top 6 receivers. He wanted a receiver drafted early. But Green Bay picked 22 and 28 were their 2 first-round picks. And they rarely trade up in the first round. They did for Jordan Love, but they hadn't traded up in the first round since 2020. So they're more likely to move back than up. But 6 receivers went in the top 18. You had Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams. All good picks. Then you had 16th, Jahan Dotson. 18th, Treylon Burks. Total busts. Thank God Green Bay didn't draft one of those guys. But the point is 6 receivers went in the top 18. And there were no receivers in the first round after that. Or at least at the time, prospects worthy of first-round pick. I think Rodgers' target was Chris Olave. I could be wrong. Of course, Rodgers is not the GM. The GM makes the pick. You don't let the player decide who you're going to draft. But he wanted the Packers to use both first-round picks to move up to get one of those top receivers. But they did use their 2 second-round picks together to get Christian Watson. If he could just stay healthy, he's got so much talent. But sometimes the board just doesn't fall that way. All the receivers you like are gone. So Washington did not address receiver early. Didn't use a pick on a receiver till day 3 when they took Jalen Lane from Virginia Tech. So they didn't have a guy that could give them leverage against Terry McLaurin. If they had used their first-round pick on Matthew Golden or gotten Trey Harris in the second round, they might have had some leverage. But Terry McLaurin and his agent know that Washington is not the same without him. So they, in my opinion, caved a little. But you have to keep him, even though he's about to turn 30. So cut down day, that's kind of what's going on. The podcast tonight, we're going to go more in depth with these topics. The college football preview, it's going to be a lot of fun. Most football podcasts do not talk about college football. I'm looking forward to this year because there is no team, in my opinion, as good as Ohio State last year. There's no team as good as Michigan 2 years ago. So it's a free-for-all. I know Texas is ranked first, but I don't think they're as good as Ohio State last year. I do not think, as far as overall talent. Still very good. But I think the college football season, we could see everyone with 2 losses. Probably not. There's probably one team with 1 loss, but I doubt we have an undefeated team going into the playoff like Oregon last year. I just think, especially in the Big Ten and SEC, these teams are just going to beat each other up, and there's going to be a lot of 2-loss teams. Should make the playoff real interesting. We're going to do our predictions for the Heisman, the playoff, all of that. So check out the podcast. Links in the description. I also write articles for PackersTalk.com. That link is also in the description. They're published every Monday. Subscribe, give me a thumbs up. Really helps out the channel. Share this with anyone who loves football as we grow football with cheese. Check these out if you have not. And I'll see you in the podcast tonight. And look out for my next video later in the week.